Come and see, come and see, come and see. You wanna be, you wanna be, you wanna be. You wanna be in the light. Come and see, come and see, come and see. Come and see, come and see, come and see. You wanna be, wanna be, wanna be. You wanna be the light. But don't you wanna be? But don't you wanna be the light?
Greetings.
Hi.
Welcome. We're glad you're here with us today.
Yes. Exciting.
It's always exciting. Every time we record, it's exciting. Because
I know, it feels good, doesn't it?
it does feel good because we may have a general idea about taking you guys on this journey with us as we're discussing
We
these
really
topics.
have no idea where it's going to go.
No idea.
It's always a beautiful unfolding.
Yes, it is. And today will be its own beautiful unfolding. Mm-hmm. This episode of talking about how we're not alone in the universe.
The subject of extraterrestrials, extradimensionals, inner earth beings is a subject that has definitely been a framework, I know, for both of our entire lives. You know, it's hard to imagine just because we have inherently and because of our personal experiences for our entire lifetimes, the idea of extraterrestrial life or life outside of this planet has never seemed implausible for sure. And it has been something that has just been a given for us. So living at this time is amazing, where really most of the world now believes in the presence of extraterrestrials, even though full disclosure hasn't taken place.
And that
But
speaks volumes.
We
right
believe
there.
it's imminent.
It is imminent, and we're gonna talk about that. How imminent
And
that
it's
really
exciting,
is.
and it's
Super
something that we
exciting.
all get to be a part of through our own actions
That's
and
right.
our own intentions. And it's just exciting because extraterrestrials and higher dimensional beings and even earth elemental beings, even dimensional beings on this planet have had a huge impact on our spiritual path as guides. And if you feel, not everybody does, feel that connection with ETs.
They may not feel and be able to describe a specific connection with ETs, but you are hard pressed to find anybody that, if you really are having an honest heart-to-heart conversation, that people ultimately are entertaining an idea that we are probably not alone. We're not alone in this galaxy, and we're definitely not alone in the universe.
Well, it's kind of a game changer when you think about it. You know, and I've had a lot of discussions with people who don't really come from a place where the idea of extraterrestrial life seems like it would make any sort of an impact on their daily life. But I feel like the fact that as human beings, we feel so isolated on this planet and alone, kind of in itself is a belief system and a framework that we sort of like grow up with and are
Totally.
indoctrinated.
And it affects
with.
so many layers of our individual lives.
Right,
This
exactly.
idea where we feel alone,
Like we're meant to
isolated.
be, yes, alone without any sort of guidance. And that's not how, you know, how we're intended to feel.
I cannot think of a time ever in my entire life that I did not believe in the existence
No,
of
me
other
either.
life. It's been that way from the very beginning. And in fact, growing up as a kid, it was a bit of an obsession for me. This knowing, this inner knowing that we are not alone. It's almost like being in a school, and when do we get to graduate and get to be a part of the rest of the galaxy? You know? And I think discussing the integral role that ETs and EDs, and don't get hung up on those terms. We're going to talk about them here in a little bit. But the significance as it pertains to our collective spiritual journey as humanity, as our spiritual journey individually, it cannot be overstated, the importance of it. It's in all kinds of religious texts. Mm-hmm. I mean, just think about all of the origin stories for so many indigenous people is that they came from the stars, you know? So where does that come from? You think that just happened out of, like, I mean, it blows my mind when people want to discount the relevance or even the existence of ETs. Like, it's literally all around. And we're not here to prove. I'm not going to sit here and try to argue the existence of that. Not at all. We know that they're real. We know they exist. We know we've got eons upon eons of relationship with different beings from other parts of the galaxy and the universe. But until we as a collective of humanity get to a place where we value something above things and power and dominion, where we see each other, I see you as me, we are all interconnected, we're all related, we're all here together in this journey. And when that moment happens, then we get to have a seat at that intergalactic table.
You know, we were talking about this earlier about how the movies and books about extraterrestrials coming at it from this point of awe and wonder and benevolence, like big brothers and sisters that were looking out for us and
helping us along
the way, and how it kind of took a turn and became this platform for a lot of fear mongering and everything.
Fear of the other.
Everything really got dialed down to a really low vibration where it was nothing but gloom and doom and just, you know, lots of fear about aliens landing and wanting to take over the earth and our resources and, you know, all this stuff. And
they're coming to take our precious resources. They're coming to mine our gold and haul away our water. Give me a break. Like, you know, it's just so funny how through our culture, as far as books and movies, radio programs, I mean, the War of the Worlds, Orson Welles instilled so much fear and panic into the American population with that, that we were under attack, you know, and it becomes this metaphor for the other, the fear of the other, more separation, right? And that just does not have any resonance, you know, that we're going to get abducted, we're going to get anally probed, maybe, you know, they let us remember it, maybe they don't. I mean, most people, because of that influence, not to mention, you know, the waters get really murky with things like the X-Files. They're even murky with a show like Ancient Aliens, where on one hand, beings can be portrayed as very benevolent, but yet ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sure seems like that at the end of the day, people want to kind of portray aliens as just fucking with us.
And there's lots
from
of
other
theories.
Star systems.
I mean, you can
theories.
do your research.
Oh, yeah.
Use your discernment. There's a lot of information and disinformation out there, as with all things. And so be mindful, you know, trust that you're being guided to the right sources of information and really open your heart and look at sources as, is this something that is perpetuating a state of fear? Even if it's masked as something that is something for the highest good of all. But if you're tapping into elements of fear, that may not be the source for you. That's
usually a good indicator that that's not something that's in resonance. Because
I mean, it comes down to fear or love.
It does, always. And for us, in doing this episode, our purpose is to really be focused on the significance of this relationship in terms of spirituality, in terms of our evolution of beings, of souls. But it's really also about our relationship with our Mother Earth, the consciousness of this very planet that we get to live on, and its significance, her significance within the galaxy and the universe. And I can just speak from my perspective, from my own personal experience. I have only had positive, uplifting, heart expanding experiences when it comes to ETs and extradimensionals.
As have I.
Right.
I will say, we know from experience that when you have a phenomenal event, you are just interpreting that event from where you are, from your own perspective, from your knowledge base, your level of experience, your level of understanding at the time. And that is something that evolves as you evolve.
Oh,
and
completely.
Something that may seem unusual or it catches you off guard. And, you know, it's just like people with a UFO sighting, you know, where some people are terrified from their perspective. Other people are like running towards it. You know, I
Right.
mean, it's a personal thing,
It
right?
is.
It's based on your experience that you're bringing. But having said that, I mean, we have both had unusual experiences that left a lot of uncertainty and question marks in our younger lives that we didn't have context for, that we've gone back and revisited it with our current level of experience. I wouldn't say that they necessarily invoked fear, but there was a lot of uncertainty and doubt and confusion because there wasn't all the context for it. And things have unfolded over decades
Totally.
to where you have an understanding and you can go back and revisit these experiences and say, oh, that's what that was. Like I thought it was this way and it was really something completely different.
That's why it's important to have that reflection as you're progressing along your own spiritual journey on your own path. It is important to pause and go back and reflect on events. Every human being is going to contextualize a phenomenal event in that moment with the framework that they have, with the lens that they have at that point. And we may think something was unsettling, confusing, and yet, like you said, our lens was a little bit different at those points in time. And yet,
We knew the importance of what was happening.
right,
though.
and those things will
know?
stay with you. And so you may have had things that have happened to you in your life, and you could have thought it was one thing, and in the end, it ends up being something entirely different, surprising, and life-changing when we can have that new awareness of what that is. What does that mean? What is the significance of that? And when we talk about disclosure, people may or may not have a clear understanding of what that is. But for us, that means that there is an acknowledgement on the mainstream level of reality that we're all agreeing to take a part in, but that there is this acknowledgement in some kind of, there is no going back way of what has been seen cannot be unseen. And we can talk about these things. We could talk about the percentages of Americans, talk about the percentage of people around the world that believe in the existence. There's millions. I'm going to blow it out and be like, I know that there are millions of accounts across the planet. When you have people, and just because it's not on the nightly news, That doesn't
sometimes
mean,
it is,
but sometimes
and that's
it is.
not even
right.
enough.
I mean, you can go back to these very specific events, the Phoenix lights. Millions of people in that area of Phoenix saw those lights. Okay, you want to rationalize that as some sort of, secret government aircraft or, our favorites, the weather balloons.
Satellite.
It was light reflecting off of the gas of Venus, and somehow it entered our atmosphere. Pick your Men in Black, fake, made-up memory, and it's out there. I mean, that shit's real as far as explanations go.
But people know in there, if you've had an experience like that, you know in your heart that the truth of that experience. It doesn't matter what anybody says or how it's rationalized.
This is what I get. I get so tickled. I have this weird thing about M. Night Shyamalan's movie Signs. Okay?
I know you do. And I honestly feel like I've only seen bits and pieces of it, and you reference it all the time.
Because it drives me crazy. He almost always gets it, but then he doesn't. What do you do when you peak on your first movie? It's hard. How many times can you do The Sixth Sense? How many times can you put a twist at the end? He set himself up. Poor guy, I feel for him. However, that movie Signs, in case everybody hasn't seen it, you can check it out, starring Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix. And of course, it starts with crop circles. Okay, well, I was super excited about this, of how we view crop circles, which they're complicated and they're not just ETs and it's not just one thing. We'll table that. But in the meantime, the way that this is portrayed as the ETs, once again, bad. They've come here, but they don't like water. Have you noticed? They don't ever do these things close to water. So why are they here? To come and take our precious resources, to colonize the planet? Why does this surprise anybody? You know why that people go to that theory? This is my personal theory. People go to that theory because if you're a part of dominant culture, you've been a part of the settler colonial experience. Why wouldn't you come and take something that doesn't belong to you just because you want it? Right. Just to have dominion, right?
So but that's also part of the human experience.
Exactly. And it's just bullshit. And let's get away from that idea because we are tired of that old worn out paradigm. But in the movie, there are elements that I absolutely love. And one is that all of a sudden, because these things are happening all over the globe simultaneously, and then some poor family in Brazil catches one of them on their birthday videotape, that the scene of Joaquin
it's always
reacting.
South America. There's
it's always South
some
America.
Video in South America, which I love.
Me too, because they're getting the truth out. Yeah, because you know what? They're open
those
to
little
it.
Bitty ones, those little bitty ETs.
Yeah, the little tiny
and I like
ETs.
the little tiny ones.
No, but in M. Night's world, these are reptilian looking, and they can camouflage themselves and be invisible. But they're tall and they kind of walk a little like Sasquatch. And, it's the same ridiculous pose from the famous Sassy picture, and that's the still that M. Night wants to hone in on in the Brazilian found footage at the birthday party. Same pose, looking to the side, arms out in front and back. But he did a good job of portraying disclosure in the sense that we're all agreeing that this stuff is real. These ships are real. These crop circles are real. They're here. But, of course, they have to be bad, right? We can't have... It's just like, I think of Bill Hicks. Where's the good LSD story? Where's the good story of an ET?
Well, we've had a few awesome movies. We've had some really, really good
Spot
movies.
on.
We have a list. Let's list them out right now.
Well,
the biggest one that I would always recommend, we always reference it, it's literally so quotable, would be Contact.
Right. Which, as we all know, was based on an awesome book by my beloved Carl Sagan, who I was obsessed with from the time I was 11 years old. But that book, because he was able to blend these two things in this very beautiful
everything's
way.
Covered.
Everything
right?
is covered.
Dimensions of reality.
Understanding how real space travel happens is dimensional.
and through your consciousness.
And through your consciousness.
And some type of technology that interfaces with your consciousness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. For sure. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where we get to have contact with a benevolent, sweet, loving ETs that are communicating and connecting to us through sound, through tones.
And such a beautiful demonstration, I think, of what it's like when you have an experience like that and nobody understands or believes
you.
And yet what has been seen and felt cannot ever be, you're forever changed from having these experiences, and you can't just put that back in a box somewhere.
Right.
There's nowhere for it to go.
No,
you know?
there's not.
And just,
these people were chosen. They were asked, and were, that whole scene where Francois Truffaut is trying to explain to the army captain dude, like, we didn't invite these people. They were invited by the ETs. They have every right to be here, and we're trying to keep them out. Who are we to try to keep these people out that have had this contact and that are driven, whose marriages have been destroyed? They've lost their families. Literally, it kind of encapsulated the zeitgeist of the moment of how during the 70s, people have forgotten that, especially here in this country, that was very real. People believed in it. I mean, you had a president sitting in the White House that acknowledged his belief in the existence of ETs. I mean, Jimmy Carter laid it out on the line on that deal. Do people, and people kind of have, they don't really, if you didn't live in that time or you have an awareness of that, because that was kind of a golden period where culturally,
it just felt like the sky was there was
literally
nothing,
the limit, the limitless limit.
The sky was the limit on what we could explore and what we could discover, and it just had a whole different feeling to it of like the infinite and expansive, and then really it just became a platform for mainstream media to capitalize on keeping everybody in a perpetual state of fear.
Well, and you're discredited if you if you acknowledge belief. Now, I mean, I think about Shirley MacLaine, another very prominent person who I can remember how David Letterman, who I love, but Dave was relentless with her on his show when Out on a Limb came out. Keep in mind, best-selling book. Millions of copies sold and read. So tell your jokes all you want. The proof is in the pudding. She's selling books. People are reading it. People are connecting. They're resonating with it. But she did not give two shits if anybody believed her or not, because once again, when you have a phenomenal experience yourself, and you very well, listening today, could have had an experience where you saw lights in the sky. You felt the presence of something. You had an experience that you cannot necessarily describe. And that creates a situation where you're like in contact. You have an experience that you cannot quantify. Those phenomenal moments of experience, your heart gets so expanded that you think it's going to explode out of your chest. That feeling of really feeling that unity consciousness, of feeling that interconnectedness with just
of knowing that you're not
everything.
alone.
And you are not alone.
And that there are these benevolent, high dimensional beings. One of the reasons why we felt so compelled to make this podcast is because things are just changing so drastically, and what used to, just in our lifetime, I mean, people would not even discuss their experiences for fear of being locked in a mental institution or being ridiculed to the point where they lose everything, to you can't even walk down the street without running into 3 Pleiadians, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And this
that
is
are self-identifying.
Right. And this is just common knowledge, it's common language. People, because they are having their own experiences and we have this shift in a paradigm where people are feeling safe to talk about it, where they are finding through the internet and through their communities like-minded people who are also coming out and talking about their experiences. We are bringing forward disclosure. We're not waiting for disclosure to happen. I don't need Colonel so-and-so from the military or whatever to validate the experience that I've had.
Right.
You know, I don't need it quantified. I don't need it qualified.
No.
I don't need your external approval or validation for the experiences that I've had.
Right. I think that people do want to have this open acknowledgement of we are not alone. We are all connected.
And I would say that I think that it's happening from the inside out.
It is, because as with all things, that's where it has to start.
I mean, it is happening from the inside
Right.
out. It's basically like the wave is happened. The genie's out of the bottle.
Yes.
And official disclosure will happen when everybody is believing it already. Because that's how everything does
That's
work.
exactly how it has to happen.
You know?
It
we
has
have to believe it in order to bring it forward.
And you have to have your own personal individual experience.
Right. And if you're open to connecting in that way, you know, the possibilities for co-creations with other dimensional beings and extraterrestrial beings is limitless.
So let's define what is extraterrestrial intelligence. They're beings that originate from other star systems, other planets in those star systems.
Other galaxies, other
quadrants of the universes, right? That definition is a really big umbrella that a lot of different beings reside under. Extradimensional beings are beings that do not originate from this dimension of reality.
You can do your own research on densities and dimensions of reality. And, you know, our belief is that in this ascension process, we're going from a third dimensional reality to a fifth dimensional reality. And probably the one thing that I'll say about dimensions of reality, and the only differences in dimensions of reality, is that there seem to be different governing rules of
time.
Physics.
Right. Usually it's a time and space issue.
Yes.
When you move into a fifth density reality, time is much more fluid. That's why there is this interpretation that there's instant manifestation, because your time is fluid. You're not interpreting it in a linear fashion. So there are different laws of physics. Let's just leave it at that. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean literally the technical definition of metaphysics, outside of physics, beyond physics.
And that would allow for different types of technologies and levels of consciousness that we can't even comprehend.
Exactly. Now that we've kind of talked about extraterrestrials and extradimensionals, under that canopy, we then can get into these subcategories that people define, and you're going to hear these terms if you haven't already. There are the walk-ins, a human being on Earth, volunteers on a soul level. I want to keep that clear, on a soul level, as your innate, as your higher self agrees to step out of the physical vessel, human being, to just go ahead and I guess go back to all that is. And in exchange, as the soul of an extraterrestrial being, meaning somebody from another star system, is going to step into that human vessel, into that physical body. In the accounts of people who are walk-ins, most will say it literally was like a switch was flipped, and they were this way one day and the next day they were completely different. Some people may or may not remember people in their lives. Typically, a dramatic personality shift. There was a major shift in their belief systems and how they perceived the world and their place in it. They may have very vivid memories of living on these other planets, of knowing that they came from a particular planet in a particular star system. I would say that is the classic definition of a walk-in. There was a period of time where everybody was talking about being a walk-in.
I know you don't really hear that much about walk-ins anymore.
I hardly ever.
I don't know if that was like some kind of an exchange program that just got like.
I think it was. They figured out. They did an outcome-based research on the effectiveness of walk-ins. I don't want to confuse people, but I also believe there are different kinds of walk-ins, different soul exchange, and I think you really described it perfectly. It's like a foreign exchange student program, but you don't really go back home ever. You kind of finish out your session in this physical body, or maybe you do. I think about the movie K-Pax.
Mm-hmm. Such a good movie.
It's a good movie.
We don't really want to.
Excellent performances, although we don't really want to invoke Kevin Spacey.
He was phenomenal in that movie. And he's phenomenal in every movie.
He did a great job.
He's a great actor.
He is a great actor. But that was a really good, and I know that's a series of books. I've not read those books. And
that's a great movie to watch for
but if you want to
about like a walk-in situation.
Where, in that movie they kind of took it where this guy was in a coma.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up. And the human being had a traumatic event, and then all of a sudden he's very different.
And he knew exactly where he was from.
He knew, and he baffled scientists in that movie because he was extremely explicit and
so authentic.
And authentic in his knowledge of physics and astronomy, things a lay person would not know. So, if you want to kind of see a representation of that in this way that I feel ultimately was very positive.
Yeah, it was a beautiful movie.
It was a beautiful movie. And we've had clients that they totally believe themselves to be walk-ins. So this is just to provide a generalized explanation of these terms. It is up to you to figure out and to discern for yourself what that term means to you.
Yes.
Do your own research. Another term that you'll hear within this field is a hybrid. What is a hybrid? It's not
what
just
is a hybrid?
An electric car. It's not just that kind of hybrid.
Although that's a good example.
It is.
Of a hybrid. Well, we know what
as anything, as in the very strictest definition of a hybrid is bringing two things
together. So a hybrid is the joining of human and extraterrestrial genes to create a part human, part extraterrestrial hybrid being. And people who have come forward as hybrids, they have had this profound awakening experience, whether it has happened over time throughout their whole lives or whether it has been something like a switch was turned on. A lot of these people have extraterrestrial memories. And we can be hybrids, from my understanding, on other planets.
Right.
There can be half human, half extraterrestrial races on other planets based on a gathering of genetic material.
Well, and some people would say even there are those contingencies out there that would say most of the human beings on the earth right now are actually ET human hybrids.
Yes.
Just genetically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
We can see through the archaeological record. Once again, this is something that Graham Hancock certainly discusses quite a bit. Where did these ancient civilizations get their technology.
You don't have to go any farther than the archaeological record, the known archaeological
Exactly.
record, to find evidence of how extraterrestrials have been involved in this planet.
You can open up the Bible
Yeah. And any other religious
and
text.
any other sacred text. They all have stories of beings from the sky, ships from the sky. What do I mean...
So this intermingling of
Yeah.
genetic material between extraterrestrials
Right.
and humans has been going on.
So we're just saying, as with all things, do your own research. Discern for yourself what you believe to be true. But it certainly seems, and this is another favorite line from Carl, spoken through Ellie in Contact, it would be a big waste of space, would it not, if we were all the only ones here?
We read a good book called Meet the Hybrids.
Oh, yeah.
About different accounts of hybrids realizing that they are hybrids and having direct access through the dream state and through downloads and through personal experiences of what their connections are. And it's really cool.
We've had our own personal experience with clients. Maybe that is something that resonates with you, that you've never been able to really identify, explore what that is. There are a tremendous amount of accounts of people's own stories, people doing research, channeled information, for you to discover that whole area of hybrids.
Another common term that you will hear a lot, I mean, this is probably the one that you hear the most, is starseed. What is a starseed? A starseed is a extraterrestrial being, meaning not local, not from Earth, whose soul has originated on another planet, in another star system, and has broken out of that incarnation cycle on another planet to come to Earth. Usually, starseeds are coming to a planet. I mean, I will speak for Earth because Earth is going through this tremendous amount of change right now and this huge shift in consciousness, and part of what helps that along is having a lot of different perspectives to come and kind of shake it up. And so you have a lot of different starseeds from a lot of different planets and a lot of different vibrational frequencies that are coming here to have an Earth experience.
Well, I would even go a step further and say that they're answering a call to service. I think that there are certain attributes, certain perspectives that starseeds would acknowledge that they feel. That life here on Earth does not feel the way that you know it to be true. This is not how this works. Injustice, dominion over others, different types of just that service to self, not coming from a unity, altruistic place. And we're all here doing a part in that. But I think for people that are starseeds, a bigger percentage on the population of the Earth than you might think. This is from sources that we trust. You do your own looking into it. 25 to 30% of people on the planet are starseeds. And that's a lot. And by golly, we need all the help we can get, but not everybody in that percentile is aware of their starseed origin. I mean, there are people that walk around every day and don't have that awareness, but there is increasingly that inner knowing,
right,
that things are different for them in a way that is unique to being a starseed.
So having conversations like this and having this being more mainstream and having these avenues for discussions is so helpful for people to feel like they're not isolated and alone.
They're not alone.
So many of the clients that we see And just with anything, with hybrids, with walk-ins, with starseeds, with any of the things that we're talking about, you just having a UFO experience, even if you don't relate to any of these topics that we're talking about. Any kind of phenomenal experience can trigger an awakening. And it can be like a pre-programmed trigger that is going to open up this Pandora's box of deeper knowing and deeper truths about yourself.
And so the element and the importance of extraterrestrial beings, of star seeds, of extra-dimensional beings, of hybrids, of walk-ins, all of these people that don't originate within the earth, they know that there are small moves we have to make because we have our cultural programming, if you will, to fear the other, to fear the unknown, to fear something that looks so completely different than us. I will bring it around to Star Trek. I think ultimately Roddenberry had it totally right. That we collectively have to have so much unity in what we value as what is really important. And really, it's beautiful. We're not alone. We have each other. We have only been programmed to feel divisive, to feel separate, to feel isolated, and we're not. But once we can get past the need of power, greed, dominion, and wanting to value money and things, if you're got service to self, you're operating on a frequency of fear because you're afraid of not getting what you want and whatever that is. But when we come from love, it's inclusive. It's everybody. It's everything. And we're still on that journey. But this is once again...
But we're on the fast track.
But we are on the fast track. And as more people are individually, the 100th monkey is real. There is a tipping point. There is a critical mass moment of awareness that once there is enough momentum on the collective level, then eventually the boulder is rolling down the hill and not up the hill. And people are more awake. People are more aware. And when we're ready, then we get to have the potluck dinner. You know, we want it to be spoon-fed to us. We want the mass landings on the lawns and that we're going to the libraries and people are disseminating. This is your new pamphlet on ET human relations. That's denying us the beautiful process of becoming that
journey,
on our own.
Right.
Right.
The journey
Right.
to recognizing that within ourselves.
Right. That we are them in that sense. And our ET brothers and sisters are here to help us, to remind us through our individual experiences, right? Through these phenomenal experiences. So how do we connect? How do we connect with ETs?
You're going to find out on our next episode. We'll be talking all about human-initiated extraterrestrial contact.
That may sound kind of unreal for some people to think that they have the ability to initiate contact with ETs. And we're here to tell you that you can. And we're going to talk about how you're going to do it. So join us.
Thank you all for being with us on this episode.
We really appreciate you going along for our own little conversational journey that we like to take. And if you enjoy listening to us, we humbly ask you, if you've got a few moments, to give us a rating. If you're really feeling the love, give us a review. Share it with your friends. That is the most beautiful, loving support you guys can give to us, and we're really grateful for that. So do as you feel guided to do.
And we appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, we do. We really do. It's important.
It really helps us to kind of get a feel for what people are interested in, the topics that they want to hear. It's beautiful.
Truly.
Because y'all are awesome, you're beautiful, and you're perfect just the way you are. So much love. Be the Light podcast was produced by Teal Hobson Lowther. Our incredible theme music was lovingly created by Frequency Jones. Visit our website, BeTheLightRocks.com. Stay woke, y'all.
But don't you